This tutorial will look at factoring simple trinomials. A simple trinomial is a trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c. In other words, the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. We've already looked at how to expand two binomials, multiply one by the other, take everything in one set of in one of the binomials and multiply it by everything in the other. Today we're going to focus on factoring, which is going backwards. So in order to understand the factoring, we need to understand where the different parts of the trinomial come from. We can do that by looking at the green squares here and seeing that the x squared term actually comes from multiplying x by x. What that means is that when we're going to factor x squared plus 5x plus 6, we're going to end up with two binomials, and we're going to need an x at the beginning of each binomial in order to get the x squared term. In order to determine where what the last numbers in the binomials are, we need to look at the 6 and discover where it comes from. Well, it came from multiplying 2 by 3. So we need two factors of 6. In this case it was 2 by 3, but let's say you chose 6 and 1. Remember, you won't have the binomials to check to see if your answer is right. Let's say that you chose 6 and 1. So you've got 6 and 1, you put them in your bracket. If you expand this, you're not going to get x squared plus 5x plus 6. You're going to end up with x squared plus 7x plus 6. So 6 and 1 didn't work. So you try two other factors of 6. Two other factors of 6 could be 2 and 3. Again, you can expand this. Sure enough, we can get rid of the not equals anymore. X plus 2 times x plus 3 does equal x squared plus 5x plus 6. You don't want to go through this process using trial and error and trying every factor though. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the one thing that we haven't looked at from the trinomial is this the b term, the middle term. You can see here that the coefficient of the x term is a 5. Our two factors need to add up to 5. It's not a coincidence that 2 plus 3 here is equal to 5. If you expand this out, you get the 5x. That's where this comes from, is the 2x that you get from multiplying 2 by x and x by 3. That's 5x, and that's where that comes from. Put simply, I guess, in order to factor a trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c, find two numbers that multiply to c and add to b. These are the two numbers that are going to go in the brackets along with the x's. Let's look at a couple of examples. Our first example is x squared plus 7x plus 12. So we need two numbers that multiply to the c value and add to the b value. In this case, two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. If you're having a hard time finding two numbers that work, try to be methodical. Figure out the factors of 12 first. Well, there's 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Look through that list of factors and see if there are any that add to 7. In this case, 3 and 4 add to 7. Those are the two numbers that we want. So when we factor x squared plus 7x plus 12, we know that we're going to have a binomial multiplied by another binomial. X is at the front of each binomial, and our values 3 and 4 at the end of each of those binomials. And there it is in factored form. Nice thing about factoring is you can always check your answer. Multiply the first binomial by the second. If you get your original trinomial back, you've done things correctly. Otherwise, you've made a mistake somewhere. Go back and fix it. And now for our second example, x squared minus x minus 20. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 20 and add to negative 1. In this case, because the product is negative, we know that one of our numbers has to be negative. And again, if you're stuck, write out the factors of 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5, and try to find some way to get those numbers to add to negative 1. In this case, negative 5 plus 4 add to negative 1, and they multiply to negative 20. So factoring the trinomial is going to give us two binomials, x in each, and our two numbers, negative 5 and positive 4. And that's factoring simple trinomials.